Today we're going to walk through how to implement script training as a treatment for aphasia. For this example, we will be personalizing the script to the client. Some research studies pre-made scripts based on the aphasia type and severity, but one of the benefits is that script training can be personalized to be functional for the client. First, you should discuss with the client and pick a topic that is important and relevant to them.
So we've been doing script training for a while now, but you've been doing so great. I was wondering if there are any other areas that you want to target, like different settings.
I really would like to be able to get a coffee without my spouse ordering for me.
This is a great example. Since the client gets coffee every day, this has great potential to improve their participation in daily activities. The next step is determining the key points to include in the script.
So what do you drink whenever you go get a coffee?
I just normally like a coffee with milk.
Okay.
But I also get vanilla caramel. It's a medium. And then I think I get oat milk, so like a latte.
Okay, so now that we have the key concepts, we're going to develop a draft of the script and test the complexity of it. So for the sake of this video, we have summarized that the client tried the first script and they produced it with about 50% accuracy, so it appears too easy. We will increase the complexity until they can get less than 30% accuracy in order to improve the script training to generalize to their settings. In terms of the protocol itself, we will start with the clinician modeling the target phrase.
Okay, so here's our target phrase we're going to work on today. I want you to listen to me first. I would like a medium iced coffee with oat milk.
Then the clinician and the client will produce it in unison.
Ready?
I would like a medium iced coffee with oat milk.
Next, the clinician and the client produce the phrase in unison with the clinician fading participation.
Okay, you can continue.
I would like a medium iced coffee with oat milk.
Great.
The next step is that the client will independently produce with a written cue card. At this point in the therapy session, the clinician can aim to get 10 to 15 productions of 75% accuracy by the client. This could be one of their goals.
Okay, now I'm going to let you try to do this on your own, and you can use this paper.
I would like a medium iced coffee with oat milk.
And you can keep on we're going to do this 10 times.
I
Sorry.
would like a medium iced coffee with oat milk.
So the clinician would continue to practice with the client, aiming for these productions with 95% accuracy. The next step will be independent production by the client without looking at their written cue card. You would aim for similar amount of productions with similar accuracy.
Okay, now I'm going to take this away, and I would like you to try to say that on your own.
I would like a medium iced coffee with oat milk.
That was great.
So you can do this protocol with each phrase in a script and do one phrase before moving on to the next. So in this example, they just practice one script or one phrase, but ideally they would have an entire script, and you would get accuracy on each phrase before moving on to the next. The clinician can also include articulatory placement cues or phonemic cues if they are needed during the session. Ideally, you want at least 1 to 3 sessions a week for at least 3 to 6 weeks, and home practice is highly encouraged during this stage to promote generalization of the scripts. You can instruct them to continue practicing throughout the week, and once they hit 95% accuracy or their accuracy goal, they can attempt to use their script in the intended setting. They can try without their cue card, but bring the cue card for support if needed. This will support generalization into life outside of the clinic room.
So I was looking at your home practice from last week, and you did great of working on it 5 days a week. You did have a few days that you didn't hit 30 minutes exactly, so just as a reminder, that's the goal. And if you get frustrated, you can always come back to it. And then, if you're ready, we can go talk to your caregiver about what we did today and see how your generalization of script training is going.
So this is the protocol of following how you do it in practice. Now we will look at some scoring.
So for example, today she identified that she wanted a new setting, and she did not identify 3, but she did 1. And then this was just the data that I was able to see before the session on how she did on aphasia scripts this week. This is an example of data that may be taken during the session whenever she's practicing, and for this specific one, she was able to use her visual support with it. And then, like I mentioned, as we head out, we can go get some information from the caregiver about if she used any of the other scripts that we've been training in her natural environment.
So this was our overview on script training for aphasia treatment. We hope it was helpful. Okay, so this is just a more in-depth look of what the data collection sheet would look like for script training. We have divided it up based on the short-term goal to make the data very clear for which goals it is targeting, and that helps just for clinician organization and keeping track of how the client is progressing with their goals. So for the first short-term goal, we just have a notes section. Before asking a caregiver to report accuracy, we would do some clinician and caregiver modeling and education to ensure that the caregiver or spouse is able to and willing to track accuracy. But this would just be use of the scripts in natural environments outside of the session. And so at the beginning of the session, we could ask the caregiver or spouse what accuracy and how often they use. So this would just be things that the caregiver reported, and then we can shape that into data that we can use to support their progress on this goal. This next table would be what you would actually use in the section. For the purpose of this handout, it's very condensed, but when used in the session, we would likely expand this table so that we could track accuracy of each sentence they are producing. As we're shooting for 95% accuracy, we need to take in accuracy of each production of a sentence. So we could have a separate sheet with all their sentences lined up, and it would be very easy to just mark through which words they got incorrectly, add up all the correct words, and then total that into a percentage. So for example, if they say the phrase and they get 3 out of 10 right, you could do that here, or you could just write 30%. Again, this is condensed for the purposes of this handout, but in the session you could do it as large as you needed. So you could write the accuracy, or if they got 100%, you could just write a plus sign, or if they met the goal. And then this next one is for at-home practice. In this example, we had the client using Aphasia Scripts, which is an online software to do script training. So we would just write how many days they completed their homework, how much time they spent practicing, and then the accuracy and level that they completed. And with Aphasia Scripts, the clinician can actually log in and look at the homework that was assigned. So we could do this before the session to have it filled out with what they completed and discuss that with the client. And then finally, this is for our different settings. We could just say what the script is going to be about, what setting they will use it in, and level of prompting needed. This could be things like choral reading, needing to say it in conjunction with the client to start them off, written cue cards, things like that. So this is an example of how we'd use our data with the procedures and protocols of script training.